you'll probably disappear, won't you?
Yes. Hold on. Let me just get that. I quickly downloaded it to PDF to make sure that I always get worried about it being.
We are live, but we'll wait for people to join us. And yeah, for anyone that is watching already, we almost forgot to go live because we were having a chat. But we'll just get ourselves organised and then we'll begin.
I love it. Hey, it's the way we work, isn't it, Luan?
Yeah.
Right.
It's that. Oh, there's a live button with a countdown. We should press that.
All right, we're good. We've got slides.
Okay, are we ready? Shall we go? Shall we start? It's June. It's the end of June. I don't know about you, but it's been a crazy month with travelling and events and doing this, and there's always lots to talk about. So good morning, Jonathan, first to the session. Thank you. Hello. We've already been messaging this morning about this, so I knew we'd have some people along, which is great. This is our monthly social media update session. Let me get those slides on straight away because they remind us what we're supposed to be saying and talking about. Andy, do you want to move it along and we can say who we are in case we forget who we are? My name is Luan. I'm a social media consultant, a trainer, an author. I live, sleep, eat and breathe marketing and social media and have such a wonderful mix. And June is just a real example of that, of how I've been working directly with clients to support them with their social media, their marketing projects and campaigns. Mainly B2B is the area that I work in. I also do a lot of teaching and training. It's absolutely been event season as well. Been traveling, meeting many of you at some events as well. It was wonderful to walk into a networking event a few weeks ago locally. I dropped Andy a note afterwards and was like, oh, it's Luan from Luan and Andy. We watch you every month. So it's wonderful when we do get the chance to meet you in real life. We're both news and data junkies, and we know that you're really busy. So we do appreciate those of you that come to this session every month. Those of you that dip in and out of the session, maybe we've got some first timers here as well. You're very welcome. In this hour, we're sharing our month's learnings of what we read, what we've found, what we've discovered. You may have guessed this is completely unrehearsed. We do prep the slide deck. We know what we're talking about, but we don't talk about what examples or insights or thoughts we're going to share. But what we want to do is help you stay in the know, help you be a better social media marketer and not to overwhelm you. So do take from this session what you need and what is relevant. Some you might have some quick wins. Others are things that you might park to come back to later. But hopefully in this hour, it's a fast-paced roundup for all of you.
Love it. Yep, perfect position, Luan. And I'm Andy. Pretty much most of my working life in social media, building social media companies, doing social media. And now I work for Adobe after selling a company that was a social media platform. So I have to spend most of my working life nerding out on social media data, trends, trying to second guess where they're all going. And that's what today is all about. And of course, we want to make sure that you get the slides because, as Luan said, you're all very busy and we hugely appreciate any time that you can give us. But if you just want these slides that we're going to go through, just zap the QR code. It will take you to an email capture form and we'll ping you the slides tomorrow if you want them. So, and also it means that you don't miss the future slide decks too, because we do a little bit of a write-up of what we covered today anyway, just in case you're more of a reader and want to digest it in your own time. And the only plug today, and the only reason I'll plug it is because it's entirely free. You can build all of your social media strategy and all of your social media content on Adobe Express, which is one of the most wonderful things about working for a large organization. Is that when we were a smaller startup, you have to charge for your software, funnily enough, because you've got to feed your families. Whereas when you work for a massive mega corporation, you can do these wonderful things and give it away for free, which is pretty incredible. So go ahead and try out Adobe Express if you fancy. With that, let's get into my favorite bit, which is always the nerding out on data. And there's a lot this month, a huge amount. So let's start with something that Luan and I talk about quite a lot, how search and social was changing. I think this is one of the most interesting shifts that's undergoing our industry right now. And we know this anyway. We've seen this coming. A younger generation's more likely to use social media to search over Google. interesting to see how those generations shift. So it means that, Google is not dead, SEO is not dead, but the world of search is absolutely changing. And I find it absolutely fascinating to see how younger generations are orientating more towards social. That social platform they're orientating to is predominantly TikTok and also Instagram, but TikTok is the one that's really starting to dominate search, which is fascinating. Which is why you're going to start to see more value being added in when you're searching on TikTok. So more suggested search results. It'll start to look a little bit like Google to a degree on TikTok. And the reason for that, and it's very intentional that TikTok wants to be seen as a discovery platform, is because all of their revenue, or most of their revenue, comes from TikTok Shop and people spending money directly on the platform. So really, TikTok is quite remarkable in the fact that it doesn't really see itself as a social platform. It sees itself taking on Google and Amazon, which is no small task. So that's my take on that one. But kind of building on this, and I'm interested in your take on this too. And I was fascinated to see this data because I haven't really seen it broken down like this. We know that trend is happening, but where and what are people doing on each of these platforms, and what industries are most popular? So as you can see here, Google is still incredibly important for many aspects, right? So it's why it's important to have like a balanced and a nuanced approach to this, because yes, the world of social is changing, but it doesn't mean anything is completely shifted to another side. It's starting to like converge and morph a little bit, which means our strategies potentially need to adapt to accommodate for these shifts. But like gift ideas, hair and makeup, well-being and fitness, recipes, all performing incredibly well on TikTok. So typically the more like B2C orientated stuff is performing very well. News and current affairs, still like those types of things working best on Google, but this is where you're starting to see quite a lot of growth on TikTok, where people will start, especially younger generations, default to TikTok to consume their news. So make of that what you will. But yeah, I find this fascinating. So any takes from your side, Luan, on this?
Yeah, I think this is something we have talked about this before. We will continue to talk about it because it is so important to understand, get our heads around, but also to communicate to others in the business. All too often, I'm sure we've all seen and felt that social media can be a bit of an add-on. It's at the end, you find out things at the last minute and, oh, pop this on social. And this is really showing us how important social media is as a comms channel now for those discovery stages, for the top of funnel, that people are finding us on social first. It's not that add-on as well. So we need to be really conscious of that. So it's about elevating what our role is, maybe positioning it against the put it on the website, let's do some SEO and do some paid search, that it's kind of really elevating social media to be the opportunity that it can be. So the more that we can support this with data is obviously a good thing. It's also really important. I know we talk a lot about Generation Z. I'm sure there's many Generation Z watching this. I'm not Generation Z. Other generations are available. But we are seeing shifts, and Generation Z are coming into the workplace, and very often they are the people within an organization that are charged with initial search for providers, for products, services as well. So they are really important at that top of funnel stage. And I think what this chart is showing, which if you can't quite see it, which is why we share the slides and share the recording afterwards, it's about different areas and where they search. And for me, this comes back to like search intent, doesn't it? Like, where are you in your journey for something? Where do you go to search? Where do you need to find that out? And it's not replacing, but it's absolutely holding its own and growing as a platform. So we need to be taking this seriously.
Yeah, great points.
Talking
of TikTok versus Google, this is really interesting, right? Because a lot of that talks about consumer orientated behavior, whereas this is the first data that I've seen that really starts to underpin how powerful TikTok is particularly, but you could look at this at social media in general. But like, look at this. According to business owners, which TikTok content outperform traditional search engine results pages? And by search engine results pages, they're talking about both organic, so like SEO, and also paid search, which is absolutely massive, right? The fact that TikTok content can outperform paid search on Google. And what's the stuff that's most popular? Video tutorials. And if anyone spent any time on TikTok, you realize that a lot of TikTok is dominated by like these how-tos and that kind of stuff. Creative tangential content related to my company product. That's quite esoteric, that description, it's fair to say. But again, like showing different ways and hacks and best ways to use things. And, you know, there are some B2Bs that are doing that really well. Some businesses are like showing like how-tos and tips and hacks on their product, or like things you never knew about product X or product Y. And that's working really well on TikTok. It's those kind of more interactive, human-led type of storytelling orientated ways of producing content is working really well. So so encouraged to see some of this data. About you, Luan, what's your take?
Yeah, I love this chart. And for anyone that's smiling, if I don't know if Laura's watching this, I wasn't, you know, back 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't think TikTok was going to take off, that we didn't have room for another social media channel, and how would we engage with this, you know, real video-led content. I do think COVID did help the speedy growth back in 2020, 2021, but to see it really kind of standing out now and getting results for organizations, particularly in B2B, I think is amazing. And there is some brilliant content in there, really humanized, really good advice as well. And again, going back to generations, if this is where our Gen Z is, we need to be there. I'm seeing lots of conversations and case studies and examples. I've been judging some awards this week as well, so I'm trying to not break any confidences, but just around, you know, we're trying to reach new audiences, we're trying to reach younger audiences as well, and TikTok really coming into the frame for that. So again, to have data and supporting evidence is really important. That's what we need. Definitely.
100% agree. Talking of B2B and B2C, I've kind of been referring to that over the past couple of slides. Which social platforms is your brand use? Top 10. The mix between B2B in orange, B2C in yellow. This is from HubSpot's report. Fascinating to see that, like, one, TikTok has grown substantially, and interesting to see how high Facebook still ranks for B2B in particular. And yeah, YouTube is very encouraging, because often bemoan the fact that we don't consider YouTube as much as we should do as part of many people's social strategies, given how powerful it is for both social and search, and how quickly YouTube Shorts is growing. Really encouraging to see that towards the top. Probably the only surprise for me in this data was that a LinkedIn index is lower than I would have thought for B2B. So that did jump out at me. What about you, Luan?
Yeah, I kind of skimmed past the platforms that we always talk about, because I think we kind of know that, and that reinforces it. But yeah, LinkedIn, you would kind of expect it to be more of a skew towards B2B. But I've read some really interesting case studies this week on Pinterest and how that is being used. Again, top of funnel, driving to other places. And so to see that is a bit more B2B than B2C is perhaps a bit of a surprise as well. We rarely talk about Snapchat, you and I, but you know, other, you know, because we have so much to cram into an hour. But for Snapchat to be equal on 18% again is a bit of a surprise. And I think this is possibly the first time we've had data charts that are starting to come through with Threads on it. All the reports that we usually have, we haven't seen data coming through. Threads' first birthday next week, next Friday. It's been that long. So to see that, again, 1% difference between B2B and B2C, but it's coming through on the chart. So there's lots of kind of forward thinking and validation in that report.
Definitely. Some other shifts here. Be Real has sold. So if you still remember Be Real from like the 2022's darling app of the year, I think it was called quite early on that it's really a feature, more of a gimmick than an app. Still sold for a huge amount of money, so it's made people very wealthy indeed. But it's fair to say that this won't be a wide consumer app now. That it was touted that Be Real's the next social platform, and it's fair to say that it's not going to be that. Sure, I'm sure there will be some niche play in that, and there's always opportunities for niche platforms when you're targeting particular audiences. Especially if you're in the gaming world, naturally BeReal probably will be quite a relevant platform. But for like a broad mass market platform, BeReal's kind of time in the sun has come and gone, I think. Let's get into some new features then. Luan, do you want to take us through Insta?
Yes. So now we're going to go through platform by platform. We'll mix this up, and we've got some data and some insights. So this is one that is always, I smile when Andy puts this in and think about how we're going to talk about this. We like data to give us guidance, to give us benchmarks. My caveat is the real answers to this question, which we always get asked around best times to post. The answers will be in your own data, through your own trial and error and testing, but it is good to have guidance, and people love guidance on this question.
Oh, yeah.
There's one question that ever comes up, it's the best times to post. And what we can see on here is the lighter areas are when you get lower engagement, and the darker areas are higher engagement. And I was quite surprised at this from looking at data from my own account and from various clients' accounts, that middle of the day seems to be the highest engagement. Whereas what I've seen in terms of when audiences are online and activity is end of the day, kind of 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. But maybe this is skewed because actually there's always that caveat of when we post, when we're online, when we're engaging, we need to be around for comments and things like that. The challenge with this data is it's always a global overview. It's not country specific, it's not sector specific, but to have that middle of the day, quite obvious dark area Monday to Friday was a little bit of a surprise for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We've got some very wordy slides coming up now, but yes. I think honestly, these next 5 or 6 slides are possibly the most interesting if Instagram is your thing. Yeah, let's get into it.
So we very rarely talk about algorithms. You will notice that we don't talk about hacks, we don't talk about myths. We share data when it's come from the platforms, when it's tried and tested, and when it's been rolling out. But Adam Mazuri, the head of Instagram and Threads, has recently done a brilliant, I'll pop a link to it in the comments of the event later. He's done a 1.5 hour interview about the platform and what's happening. He also regularly does Ask Me Anythings on his own account. He does Q&A and highlights. So we're sharing this because this has come straight from Adam Mazuri, and he's shared quite a lot. We've seen some updates over recent months around how they're focusing on original content, how they're focusing away from, they don't want engagement bait, and that they're focusing on reels. To summarize this slide, more than half the amount of time spent on Instagram is video at this point. And what they're trying to do is kind of really dive in, lean in. He's American, these are the phrases he's using, to discover a reel and send it to a friend. This comes up on the other slides as well, and we mentioned this briefly last month. Adam Mazuri is talking about sends and how this difference now in how people are engaging on the platform, that there's less public commenting and encouraging people to send this to their friends. And in this podcast, he talks all about this is how friends interact. They send things to each other, and that's how engagement is happening now. So a lot more behind the scenes.
And just to go back to that first point, half the amount of time spent on Instagram is video, half the amount of time. And Instagram time spent on platform is growing a lot faster than it has done in the last 5 to 7 years. So video is the thing they're prioritizing. So again, we talk about it every month, but yeah, if we, whilst we don't necessarily want to compromise our content to kind of allow ourselves to bend to the platform preferences, really the message in this is pretty clear. If we want to get noticed, we need to do video, predominantly reels, right? So carry on, man. Sorry.
No, the other thing he talks about in this podcast, and again, he uses a different phrase to one that we might be used to. He talks about unconnected content, which is basically profiles you don't follow. And if anyone has seen conversations on Instagram and Facebook groups, it's around, my content isn't getting shown to my followers. It's getting shown to people I don't follow. And to some extent, we want to attract new audiences. So we're happy with that. That's how TikTok have grown with the For You feed, is, making recommendations. But what Adam was talking about in this podcast and this quote here is there's way more unconnected content, profiles you don't follow, than there is connected content. And he was talking about, so maybe you follow, I don't know, a few hundred accounts. Most of them don't post something to a given feed. So basically, they need to serve you things from accounts that you don't follow so that you have things to look at in your feed. And he did talk about how what he was working on is showing us more data around that as well. So I think that's something to come, is like that we see in our insights data from our followers versus our non-followers and how we can use that to grow.
Again, that's why Reels is important, and that's why followers doesn't matter as much as it used to.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing that's saved Instagram of late. Because most Instagram users will bemoan the fact like, we want a chronological feed, or I only want to see content from my followers. The fact is that doesn't create a platform that grows, because the people, it takes a lot of effort to curate really good people to follow that will serve you really interesting content all the time. So Instagram has basically needed to take over and say, you know what, you can't be trusted to find your own follower graph. We're going to find it for you and give you recommended content. Whether that's good or bad, you can all be the judges of that. But the data is really clear. It's like that has saved Instagram. They're completely ripped off from TikTok, but it's completely saved Instagram and changed social media in one fell swoop, where we aren't building follower graphs anymore. It's all about recommended media. And these tips are super, super invaluable when it comes to how do we get recommended to others, basically.
Yeah. This one, reading it out, one of the most important things to look at if you're trying to evaluate how your videos or anything is doing on Instagram is the sends per reach. So of the people who saw it, how many of them sent it to a friend? Because that tends to be the content that does the best. So he's looking at shares, effectively, if we use the term that perhaps we're used to. Are people sending this to their friends?
Very important. Not that we needed another metric to optimize for. I know that we'll see people gaming this already. Send this to 5 people to get my ebook for free. We'll probably see a lot of that. But that's the game, and I think that's going to be very important to then optimize for if, again, we want our content to be recommended.
Yeah.
So let's carry on.
So his hypothesis, and I love the word that is used, hypothesis. His hypothesis is that what you share with one friend or with a group or a group chat tends to be healthier than something that you want the whole world to know about. And it's not that shares or reposts are bad, but he thinks that there's bias towards, almost like how you're presenting yourself to the world versus what you're happy to share with smaller groups. I find this, I was kind of thinking about this, and this is, to take it off from what he's saying, it's kind of thinking about your friendship groups and who you engage with online, and perhaps the whole meta ethos around like connecting you to people throughout the world. And is this friends that you already know in real life, or is this about you building new friends and connections and communities online that you start sharing things with? And it's kind of, there's tasks to do, isn't there, to build that community that you're then going to share the content with, to find the content that you want to have conversations around.
I think it's very interesting, and it's kind of like the antithesis of social media 1.0, where it's like, hey, I'm going to share this broadly, and naturally we saw what happened to Facebook and Twitter, right? Becomes like a cesspit of misinformation, etc. So it's very much taking the polar opposite stance of that, and having and facilitating deeper connections amongst a smaller community. And I think that is another completely opposite trend, but something that's equally fascinating. Yes, we're in the era of recommended media. Followers don't matter as much, and it's it's really a broad media distribution channel, which is essentially what Instagram, TikTok have turned into. But at the same time, facilitating those fewer, deeper connections, those close-knit communities, which is, I find that, polar opposite ends of the spectrum, but equally fascinating.
Yeah, I'm just going to pick up on a question in the chat, because Sarah's asked, do we think that follower count is still an important KPI with these changes? I think it is still a KPI, but perhaps not the most important one, or the one that you can dwell on, because they are talking all about content. The other thing that he talks about in this podcast is around how they do focus on what they call creators versus publishers, and how it is about individuals and humans versus logos and brands and news channels and outlets as well. So it is very much about human to human relationships, conversations, and the content that they need. Because if we think about B2B content, how much B2B content are you going to sit and share with your friends? If it's, kind of, here's a product, unless it's special offers or humor or how to or gift occasions coming up, I think there's quite a split coming on how we think about this working for us.
Yeah, I'm with
What
you.
Do you think?
No, I agree. Personality-led brands,
Yeah,
it just becomes even more important, and having lots of creators work with you is going to be a very, very important thing. And just to answer that question, or my own point of view is that the number of your followers doesn't impact the reach of your content as much anymore. So that's point one. Like, we can disconnect follower growth from overall content success. The amount of followers is not a determinant of whether our content's going to pop or not, which is great. I think that levels the playing field. But what follower growth is good for, though, it is still a good proxy for domain authority, right? And whether, you could question that still, but a lot of people would still look at someone with 100,000 followers and go, oh, that's impressive. And their business would still like to see their followers grow. So I don't think there's any getting away from that. But I think the important thing is it's just not a determiner of content success anymore. But there's still kind of societal stuff around it. And it's still a very easy metric to go, oh, are they big on social? Is the number bigger or not? So I don't think we're getting away from that anytime soon. But either way, point one is the important one, just as it relates to content success.
Yeah. And here we go. For creators who want to be surfaced to people who don't follow them in places like the Reels tab, we think it's important that they understand that we won't recommend Reels that are over 90 seconds long. However, we've talked to a lot of creators who enjoy sharing longer content, even though it won't be surfaced in recommendations. So it's really hard to be definitive about this. We have to take the bits from this that we can work with. But we shared this last month as well, and there's been a screenshot kind of doing the rounds. Your Reels need to be under 90 seconds.
Yeah, and it's very important. Well, all the recommended media stuff we were just talking about. So really important. It's nice to get some of these clarification points, although this isn't super clear.
Well, I think there was something, it was that how to hack engagement and that they don't want clickbait. And what he said they mean by that is if your content explicitly asks for engagement through shares, comments, or tags, they won't recommend it. And the example of this is asking people to comment with a specific word number or emoji. Now, I'm going to bring this back to something that I have been involved with and do pick up on a lot, is that if you look at the competition guidelines for Meta and running competitions on Instagram and Facebook, it says that you cannot ask for engagement as part of the entry mechanism. Whereas any competitions I see are saying you need to like this and you need to comment about who you're going to share this with and tag in others. So I don't know if this is related to competitions, but we do see it a lot. And we do say, put an emoji in the comment. I think it comes back to meaningful engagement. That is what they're looking for, which is why they're biasing towards this kind of send it to a friend. Because if you send it to a friend, you must really find it valuable.
Yeah, exactly. So I think what is still okay, and they did clarify this, I just didn't add it onto the slide, is like, what do you think about this? Comment your thoughts below. Yeah. All of that meaningful engagement is all good. It's just the kind of more engagement baity stuff. But also, don't forget, we've got great tools on Instagram now to help get more of a participatory experience with add your stickers and that kind of stuff.
Polls.
Polls, great example. All of those things help us drive deeper interactions, which we know is super important. But either way, nice and clear. Don't try and gamify engagement. And if you want to do longer videos, just know that it's not going to go as far as videos that are under 90 seconds. So some good clarity, I think, in some of that. But anyway, let's go.
Yeah, so now some features which kind of support this thinking, really. Instagram adding live streams for close friends only. So we're seeing these features around being able to engage with groups. And if anyone remembers Google Plus, this was the feature that I loved about Google Plus but never took off. People have always been asking, like, can I only share this with a certain group? And the answer for many years has been no, you can't. But Instagram are very much adding this in. So you can now, live stream for close friends only. Live streaming broadcast channels. We've talked a bit about broadcast channels. This is the one-to-many kind of town hall situations. And this morning I read that broadcast channels are being rolled out for pages. So this will be Facebook pages, but will probably apply to Instagram as well in terms of the rollout for those that have 10K plus followers. So to go back to are followers important? Sometimes you need them to access these features. But broadcast channels, and Andy and I have talked about it, should we be using it kind of to share these updates or to have conversations? I know that some whom I follow, obviously Adam Mazuri have got one, Stephen Bartlett's got one, Mark Zuckerberg's got one, but kind of makers as well, people that are kind of crafting and bringing people along on their journeys are using broadcast channels. So I think we saw a bit of a blip when it first rolled out of everyone doing one, but now kind of beyond the text and being able to live stream in them, it's kind of, Facebook lives, Instagram lives, but again, to your own communities.
Those smaller private communities, again, that trend see coming to the fore.
Story highlights. I love Instagram stories. It's my favorite feature is Instagram stories. It's really quick and easy to do, appears along the top, and you get to see that everyone who's having a look. This is a new feature. It's called Lately, and this is where it's about extending your stories before the 24 hours and automatically being able to put them into a highlight as the arrow is putting them down. So that's where your stories can automatically go. Notes. This is the, adding a status update to your Instagram back in the old world. If anyone remembers, MSN, Skype updates. I'm out of the office today, or this is where I am. But we have talked about how this is a nice thing to do on Instagram, maybe for your friends, but also businesses. If you want to highlight events coming up, special offers, that kind of thing, being able to have that kind of pinned status update. Carousels, coming back to carousels, we've talked a lot about reels, but actually we know that carousels have been good, engaging content on Instagram in the feed. Now being able to kind of choose different layouts for your carousels as well, whether it's the original, portrait or square. Nice new feature.
Like that.
Overlaying text to images on Instagram carousels, so a bit more kind of control within the apps rather than having to create everything outside with a tool such as Adobe Express. Reels, again, more features within the platform, customizing your reel covers with text, stickers or drawings. Previously you had to just pick something from the reel or something from your camera roll, so being able to do something within the app on that. Nice.
Yeah, it's an important one. Yeah, really nice and easy, that one. The last two, actually, really like that extra level of creative freedom, actually. So very cool. And
we don't always talk about testing, but testing out a way to test out reels before posting. So being able to kind of send a preview. I think this is really nice if you're trying to kind of get internal sign-offs or work with people as well. But this one, if you can read it closely, it says about sending it to friends to get their thoughts before you post it publicly, which I know some people like to do as well.
Yeah, I like your use case of like sending it to a colleague or a client, because if I actually sent a preview of one of my reels to my friends, they're like, why on earth are you sending me this? I couldn't care. So it's quite cool to have that ability to do a bit of testing and get some feedback first. So quite smart.
Testing out comment prompts, which coincides with my eye being drawn to a question. So we're seeing this come out more and more on the social media platforms of almost being prompted with your comment, helping you write a reply. And Instagram are doing that in terms of, testing out and giving you some support with your comment prompts. Marty has asked in the chat about what about ManyChat for Instagram, because that's asking for a comment.
Yeah.
Adam Mazuri does actually directly address that. And he did say, we're not stopping you using ManyChat, which is an app for helping you with comments. It's just back to that kind of inviting quality comments, not the gaming kind of one word. less valuable comments.
Exactly. Yeah, I do like this prompt thing because it's sometimes hard to know what question to put at the end of your caption. So yeah, this gives you some suggested prompts. And I think that's quite a smart move actually. And again, directly addresses the kind of thing that we were just talking about earlier. So yeah, very cool.
And insights. We love it when we're given more insights. So I said Adam Azuri was talking about this on the podcast. They are rolling out more creator insights. So this example here is showing total followers, accounts reached, accounts engaged. So expect to see more insights within the Instagram app over the next few weeks and months.
And this particular point talks to what we were referencing earlier about like working with creators, personality-led growth for brands, etc. Because now this puts a bit more transparency around those people that you want to work with. So maybe if someone wanted to do a collab with you, Luan, they could, if you've chosen to share that, obviously it's your right to share that data. People can see your impact and then send you a partnership message directly. So Instagram are doing a lot to try and facilitate those connections with creators because they know if brands want to grow properly on social media, they need to work with the personalities.
Yeah. Just going to pick up on one question before we dive into Facebook, because Mina's asked, do we think these trends will be visible to LinkedIn too? My take on that is I don't think Instagram and LinkedIn, I think they're very different platforms. We're going to come on to some updates on LinkedIn shortly. What we are seeing on LinkedIn is video being rolled out to a separate tab. And I'm sure the platforms all watch each other and user behaviors and what they're doing. But my take is what Adam Azuri is saying is working on Instagram is very different to LinkedIn and their objectives and their direction.
Now, video feed on LinkedIn is very interesting. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a different algorithm that governs that video feed. Because if the people that you follow don't create much video, that will be a terrible experience for you as a user. Yeah. And I've only played with this momentarily, this video feed on LinkedIn. So I'd expect it to be governed by a different algorithm because it needs to serve you content that it thinks you'll be interested in, not just those from whom you follow. So that potentially it's quite an interesting call out, actually, Mina. So potentially there's going to be some overlap here between the way that LinkedIn's approached it, because every platform will look at each other and they'll realize that how did we get more time spent on our platform, which is all they care about. It's a primary metric, right? More time spent, more advertising dollars. So clearly LinkedIn are probably going to pay attention to that. So yeah, watch this space.
We don't know. Facebook continuing to grow. So anyone that's saying Facebook is dead and people aren't there, the data always reverses that thinking. It continues to grow, and Facebook users are now spending 60% of their time on the platform watching video. It's easier to DM videos after content sharing grew by 80% in a year. Their active users are growing. They're still attracting younger audiences as well. They are saying, are you on Facebook is rare in high school. And, you know, it is lower in younger age groups. But I find through my work, I do a lot of work in education, is actually they do join Facebook when there's a purpose, such as freshers groups or society groups or things like that. So it might not be a default from maybe 13 upwards, but certainly they do join it and the data is there. And if people are there watching videos, there is this synergy with what we've been talking about on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in the top two sentences in that, for sure. So Facebook looking quite good at the moment.
Yeah, continuing to grow. This is a stat from US and Canada. We do always see that kind of rolling out globally. It just keeps growing. An average of 30% of the posts that people say in their Facebook feed are suggestions from outside the network. So again, we are seeing this follows what Adam Azuri says, unconnected. And that is, if we take it back to the beginning, we need to be thinking about social search and we need to be thinking about our non-followers as well and how we reach them and engage with them and create content for them as much as our existing loyal customers and advocates.
Agreed. And that's also why organic growth is returning to Facebook, right? Because it's not just determined by our followers.
Yeah. Best times to post on Facebook, a bit more variation here. So slightly more late morning and early evening as our darker areas on this one. maybe it's something that we do over lunch, and then when we finish work and having dinner. So it is interesting that this is slightly different to Instagram. So use this, as I said before, as a guide, but check out your own data for your own best times. LinkedIn have made some changes. Again, best times to post on LinkedIn. This is quite varied. And I know that, from our experience, Andy and I, we're both very early morning posters on LinkedIn. That's probably because of, and I know this because you send emails quite early and I respond as well. We're kind of, early and it's your own habits. For me, content on LinkedIn does last a lot longer. It does hang around a lot longer. But again, we're kind of seeing a mid-morning pattern on there in terms of high engagement. So, and early, and not necessarily Monday, it's kind of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are darker patterns. But very clearly, people are not looking at LinkedIn in their evenings as much as they are looking at the maybe more consumer platforms of Facebook and Instagram.
Well, it's also worthwhile noting, though, that even though engagement's basically non-existent on Saturday and Sunday, I see posts happen at the weekends do fantastically well because there's less competition in the feed. So again, this is some data, but to be honest, the more you break the rules, the better, and the more you learn. So either way, some good guidance.
Yeah. If you missed the session, Andy and I did a specific session, was it last week? Only last week on AI. If you haven't seen it, I will pop a link in the chat on this one. We did a whole session about AI and features, but we are seeing this coming through week by week, and labeling of AI content is important. And if you don't do it, the platforms are doing it for you. So it's something to watch out for, this labeling of content.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot more of that, I think.
Yeah. LinkedIn newsletters, again, we've talked about these before. They are available on company pages. They are available on personal profiles. There are some criteria that you need to meet on this in terms of your audience size. I do recommend them as a way for repurposing. If you are already doing email newsletters, consider repurposing them onto LinkedIn. My negative side of this at the moment is that you do not get email addresses for your subscribers on LinkedIn, which is why I haven't shifted over to LinkedIn at the moment. But I want control of data rather than leaving it all with a platform. But LinkedIn newsletters are adding more features, AI-driven features, ability to make them look a bit more creative than versus looking a bit like a Word document. I do advocate for LinkedIn newsletters. If you have content you can repurpose, push it out to your followers.
Nice. It's a good suggestion, actually, Luan. I might take that. Newsletters may drop tomorrow, so I might go ahead and try that. I'll report back.
Yes. Yeah, honestly, I do it with clients. If we have an email newsletter, we may tweak it. We may do a shortened version to drive to subscriptions. But if you've already got content, it's a few minutes of copy and pasting. Doesn't take long. And you can schedule your newsletters now. You didn't used to be able to schedule the newsletters, but you can. So do give them a go. What's to lose? Company pages. I'm talking quicker now because I know we've still got a lot to go through. Company pages. People engage with people on LinkedIn, but company pages have had more features added over last 12, 18 months. And we are now seeing a premium subscription option, as we are doing with other platforms. They're starting this off about $99 a month, rolling this out now. So you should have the option to do this if you want. What I like, the feature I like around premium company pages is that they will auto follow people that engage with your page. So you don't need to be kind of monitoring your page to go, oh, someone's commented on this. I need to make sure that I'm following them, inviting them to like the company page. There's a little bit of automation, but not icky, spammy automation around that. So some features. So if company pages are important to you, $99 a month will give you some valuable features. And we don't always say that.
Agreed.
This isn't the best one. And I've had messages about this all month around if you post a link into LinkedIn that is a website link trying to drive traffic to your website, the links conversation, we'll park that one. But if you are posting links, it's now smaller. You don't get the full image width preview on LinkedIn. It is a lot smaller. It looks like this. For me, when I'm scrolling through my feed now, I'm able to kind of differentiate between, oh, here's someone trying to drive me to their website traffic and go and look for a blog versus someone that's showing me an image of them at an event or a graphic or a testimonial. There's part of me that likes the mix, but I do know that people have the kind of website traffic driving objective that they're not happy about this one. X, he's made some changes. Again, with the premium feature, we've played with this one. Platforms have played with this, making likes private. Instagram talked about it. It is a setting option for you. The premise behind this was to do with, does it encourage other people to like when there's already lots of likes? Is it damaging to mental health? Hasn't been proven either way that I'm aware of yet, but X have added in likes are now private on X. So they're making it private to protect your privacy, is what they're saying. Analytics, we do love analytics. Anyone that's tried to get any native analytics about Twitter, X, hasn't been around for quite a while. They've brought it back, but it's behind the verification paywall. Best times to post. This is a fast platform, and this is interesting. Again, that the darker point is midday. I think this depends on what you're interested in. On X, for me personally, if I'm going on there, it's more an evening, the news agenda, what's happening, what people are saying about the day. Quite a skew on this one. What's your thought? You're not so active on X.
No, gave up on it, to be honest. But yeah, weekends are the interesting difference here versus the other platforms, though. So, and yeah, this is kind of part of the reason why I gave up.
It's a platform for everyone, freedom of speech. X has updated their policies to allow sexual content in the app. I don't think we need to dive into that. Yes.
Right.
You talk. There's some more chat. I'm going to look in the chat.
Let's go on to platforms that are actually growing. So, good. TikTok. Some skews, I think, very different with TikTok. Skews darker in the afternoons and evenings. So I think that's where the differences very much are. The mornings not quite as prevalent as the rest of the platforms. But again, like the timing of posts, it doesn't matter as much as it used to, given how all of the algorithms have shifted based on recommended media, etc. Yes, early engagement still matters, but I think typically posting times matter more on LinkedIn than the other platforms. That's just my kind of point of view at the moment. But yeah, as you can see, TikTok slightly different. There's some very interesting things that TikTok are working on to help brands create content, because naturally video is a much higher lift for everyone. So now they've created this new thing called Symphony Creative Studio, which is available to everyone. So you can upload some brand assets and it will automatically create interesting product videos for you. This is typically more for advertising on TikTok. And I would say right now, a bit more kind of B2C leaning. Fashion, beauty is typically the heartland of this product right now. But yeah, really powerful functionality to allow you to create TikTok ready videos just from like either a text prompt, or if you just input or upload your video, it does some clever stuff to make it look like a native TikTok piece of content. And that's the important thing. Like on TikTok, for content to do well, it does need to feel quite native to the platform, which is brightly colored, interactive, that kind of thing. Also, I did say I was only going to plug Adobe Express once, but I've lied and I've done it twice by accident. So we've just added this thing and it's entirely free as well. But now you can access 1 million trending songs directly on Adobe Express. So if you've uploaded your video, you're doing a few edits to it. I use it for all of my video content on TikTok now. And then you've also got a signal as to which songs are trending. Now, do I really want to have music alongside my kind of face to camera videos? Not really. But we also know that the sound you use determine the reach of your content too. So it is important. So you can have those sounds. You can even just turn the volume down, really. So it's not a major factor of it. But even still, if you're creating content where the sonic element is more important, this will give you an idea of the things that are trending right now. Also, will tell you through this kind of chat bot on the right hand side what hashtags are trending, the type of trending content, allow you to create scripts as well from there. So it's very powerful at helping you, access what will work well on TikTok just through a chat bot, which is very clever. They've launched their new creator center. We've spent a lot of time talking about creators today, Instagram creators, their profile analytics, similar story again on TikTok. All the platforms are falling over themselves to give creators the opportunity to express themselves on platforms and create, basically build their businesses on these platforms, because the creator economy is in full force, and many people are building livelihoods off the back of Insta, TikTok, etc., YouTube. We all know this, and now they're creating infrastructure to help people manage those businesses, get those brand deals, etc. And that's really important for us as businesses, because it means that we see an even further boom of creators, those smaller kind of micro communities that we can start working with as brands. And that's the thing that will drive our success on social more than what we put in our own feeds. Now, this is something I struggle to reconcile, if I'm honest. Whilst I get the power of this, these are Symphony avatars using the Symphony Creative Studio that we were just talking about. You can even put in your text prompt and have your own avatar created. You can even record your voice. You can even do it with, recording your own source footage and have AI animate you, or have an AI character created to represent your brand. So I must admit, I say it's very powerful, and I can see the potential future of it. We're already in the era of like AI influencers, but it still gives me the ick, if I'm honest. I struggle to reconcile like authenticity around it. So yeah, I'm going to move on from this one, because I still haven't quite got my head in the right place where I've fully formed my own opinion on this, but I'd love to know what others think. But either way, certainly helps businesses express their message on TikTok a lot easier. So there's definitely that element to it. Luan, I'd love to get your take on this.
I think this is a really tricky one. We talked about it in AI last week, didn't we? Of almost like, I think it's your word authenticity, but also transparency. Are you trying to create an avatar and pretend that it's a real person, versus is it a real person? But can I just say, this is nothing new, because I have seen, and I know Manal's looking at this. So Manal, I'd love to know if you've seen this. I've seen people write their email newsletters signed off from a persona that never existed within an organization, and kind of, okay, we couldn't visibly see them writing, but I do know companies that have kind of created a person for their personalization of email sign off. So it's not necessarily new, but I think the fact that we're seeing them and we feel like it's a real person, and if we're not being told that, that's what gives me the ick.
Yeah, it's fascinating, this. And the other thing that's fascinating is that TikTok have launched yet another new app, because we all needed another social media app in our lives, didn't we? So not content with launching Lemonade, which was, I think, last year, like a Pinterest and Instagram clone. Then they launched TikTok Notes about 3 months ago, and that was focused on, it's basically TikTok but for static content. So again, looked like Instagram. And now they've launched, interestingly named We, and this is all about close friend sharing. So it's a kind of a little bit like Be Real, but without the whole necessity to upload content before you could see anything. But again, whilst I don't think that this is very important for our social strategies, it's more like high level, macro level. What are we seeing in social? Again, more of that kind of private community, smaller groups, shunning of like the big feed and consuming content from everywhere, feeling like we're happier in safe spaces. Potentially that's the shift that we're seeing across social. No, it's not like the macro shift across the 5 billion users of social. Most people are still in their big platforms. But when you start to see what's happening with the Fediverse across like Blue Sky and those type of platforms, and Threads to a degree, where it's about smaller communities and really choosing who you want to spend your time with, We leans into that trend as well. So yeah, fascinating to see. And more that the reason why we bring it up is more just to keep an idea as to like what's happening from the overall kind of macro shifts of social. And the rest, a couple of others. OpenAI strike a deal with Reddit. I think this is super interesting, because now brands will be able to understand like the sentiment around products. And if we're doing like research on our product, what are people thinking about a certain industry or product area or competitor, being able to have OpenAI to give us summaries of what people are saying on Reddit. And we're seeing great growth from Reddit, or Reddit's seeing great growth, and more brands are using it. You saw Reddit appear in that B2B and B2C HubSpot report that we showed right at the beginning. And people are recognizing that it's a gold mine of information related to your brand. And I think that this integration with both OpenAI, and previously they did a deal with Google as well, so Reddit data will be surfaced in Google, just means that Reddit becomes an even more important platform to consider as part of our brand mix. Publishing to Reddit, not as important as like spending time listening and responding to communities on Reddit. There's and working with creators on Reddit too. So a lot of opportunity there. Anyone misses TweetDeck? I certainly do. It's probably one of the main reasons I don't bother using Twitter anymore, because I loved that for research and great engagement with people. But yeah, so you can channel your TweetDeck. What you miss of TweetDeck, channel that through Threads now on the desktop, which is pretty powerful. And as Threads grows, 150 million users right now and still growing, it's going to be a fantastic way of very quickly surfacing relevant conversations, new people to interact with, etc. And powerful option on YouTube, this inspiration tab. This is rolling out to everyone gradually. Uses AI to analyze the gaps in content related to your industry and sector, and gives you suggestions based on content you could create, which is incredibly valuable, which I don't need to tell you that. And shockingly, we're kind of on time. So
I know.
Closing with a bit of a summary. Lots on Instagram today. Importance of reels and send rates. I put share rates here, but I actually meant to write send rates. So old habits die hard. Send rates, avoid reels that are over 90 seconds long, avoid engagement bait. But overall, both Instagram and Facebook leaning heavily into video recommended media. As a result, good organic growth. TikTok and Insta leaning in on creations and new creation and analytics tools, showing the importance of like brands working with creators. I spoke quite a lot about that today, as did Luan. All of the Gen AI in TikTok is going to make TikTok content easier to create. But yeah, again, those questions around authenticity, transparency that you rightly raised, Luan, raises some interesting ethical questions for brands. And yeah, search and social, continue to see that evolve. And it's just the importance of making sure that you as an organization, especially if you're working teams, unite your SEO and search and your social teams to really come up with a consistent strategy that is agreed upon across all of you. Like what's proven right now is that we can't operate in silos in marketing functions. We all need to pull in the same direction, because we're starting to see an increased variance of how people consume information. And to your point, Luan, social media is not a channel, it's a strategy, right? So don't try and tack social media onto the end. But likely, I don't need to tell anyone who's joining this call part of that, because you join this call because you get it. But anyway, we'll keep on fighting the good fight. Anything that you want to add before we close out today, Luan?
If you put the next slide up, Andy, if you missed anything of what we said over the last hour, and I'm sure we all need to watch this back and see the stats in here, you can get the slides. Scan the QR code there. A big thank you for watching. We will be back on the 18th of July, so next month, slightly earlier, because we'll be heading into holiday season and we won't be doing the session in August. So maybe we need to do September's a little bit longer, because I'm no doubt there'll be lots to talk about. For those of you that did, thank you so much. Register your interest to come along to Adobe HQ and meet us on the 11th of July. We have many, many more people than we had spaces. So if you haven't checked your email inbox in the last week for an email from me that says you're in, you've made it, or your invites, please check for that. If you haven't received one, we're really sorry. We didn't have enough room for everyone, but we're going to drop you an email over the next few days to see if you're happy to stay on the wait list. For anyone that does drop out, come along to the next one. We do want to meet you. So if you didn't make it this time, we're really sorry. We do want to meet you at any time, or drop us notes on LinkedIn. I've arranged some chats with people over the next few weeks that message. It's that time of year where perhaps people have got a bit of space in their diary for a virtual conversation. So yeah, we'd love to meet you anywhere, have chats, get in touch, and join us on next month.
Yeah, and sorry, I could only fit 50 people in our meeting room that I've booked out in Adobe. So either way, if you're going to come, hopefully we'll have a nice sunny day. have a lot of social media learning, got some great people lined up, and yeah, and have a nice drink on the rooftop bar as well. So
Yes.
yeah, it'll be wonderful. And yeah, echoing all of your thoughts and points, Luan, thank you so much again for taking some time out of your very busy day to learn all about what's happening in the world of social. I hope you find this useful, and anything we can do to improve on this, just let us know.
Yeah. See you later. Bye.
See ya. Bye.